and suddenly I felt nothing. I couldn't cry, so once again, I couldn't sleep.
A video found in the recent Epstein files dump shows Jeffrey sitting in front of a webcam. And in a doorway in the background, we see some sort of humanoid entity. It has a large bulbous head, and it's standing in the doorway of a room. It's not a static figure, because as you can see, it moves toward the end of the video. It has a humanoid body, but a large bulbous head. The video's grainy, so it's hard to make out any other features, but some people claim to see large eyes as well. Could this entity be something similar to Lamb, who was summoned from a different sexual deviant in 1918, one Aleister Crowley? Alright, so this is one of the things where you just have to be there to see it. Alright, so this is the ball I found on my live. It's just moving on its own. I don't have the force. So here it is, about 70 feet in front of me, about 100 feet in the sky. And it slowly comes down. But this is a solar system trail, which is ironic because it's a UFO. But here it is, slowly coming down, and then I'm barely at the end of it, where it's right there. It's so dark I lost it, but you can see it right here, right there, going down in the ditch right in front of me. But listen to the sound.
Fuck it. Dude, do you hear that?
You can see the condensation on top of it and how scorching it is at the bottom. Half of it was cold to the touch, that so cold that it felt like it was burning, and the other side was warm, hottish. You can even see it. And this is the only sign that's on the ball, nothing else. So. And it's back. It's actually blue this time. What the f...
Can we move?
Hold on. I'm gonna turn on the light real quick. Turn on the light real quick with me. Turn on. Okay, I'm thinking. Okay. Wait. Hold on. Turn it off. All I see is me. Turn off. Of course. It's literally gone. Yeah. Crying.
I think one of the most galling, shocking moments for me was when people that I was talking to in the program, who are still in the program, admitted to me that we're using high-pulse microwave weapons, HPMs, to take them down craft. And what we do is we use psionics to lure them, to bring them, to attract them, to invite them. And for some obscure reason, they keep on coming.
That's something we discussed about as well yesterday, and it's something that I've been pondering on a lot on this channel, as many of the viewers know, is that that seems to me like a white blood cell response, like some type of autoimmune system response, because if they are that intelligent, they're not fish. They're not going to keep falling for the same trap and bait. Is it like an AI? That's what it seems to me. But okay, here's my next question. We've purposely downed these craft, right? Have we purposely murdered other beings?
Oh God, that's a horrible thought, isn't it? Wouldn't it be an absolute catastrophe if our first contact with a non-human intelligence involved us murdering the occupants of the vehicle that we were trying to retrieve?
Have we?
I suspect we have. Yeah, I suspect we have.
That's the worst crime.
I've asked people that have been involved in retrievals, I've asked them what happened to the beings. And I just get a squeamish look. Now, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
I don't even know if there was a being on the craft that they're talking about. They just don't want to answer the question. But it's the anguished look that they give me that concerns me most of all. And I think that's the ethical quandaries behind what we've been doing, on the rationale that what we're doing is giving ourselves a strategic advantage against our potential foreign adversaries. We've rationalized ourselves into a military groupthink that what we're doing is the right thing, when the thing I find most fascinating is even, for example, Jake Barber, who went public with me year before last. Jake talked openly about the love, the overwhelming love that he felt from whatever the intelligence was that was associated with the craft that he was recovering. It was life-changing for him, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn if I say that for Jake, that was a defining life moment. It changed his life. He made a decision, and incredibly, he stuck to it, to speak publicly because he thinks the public has a right to know what he knows.
Yeah, that's where it gets really murky as well. Thinking about that, for me, it breaks my heart hearing that that's a possibility. It really does. It's a very upsetting and probably the worst crime humanity could commit.
Oh, just imagine. I mean, imagine if that's true. And the thing I find most confronting is, at the moment, the official position still of the Pentagon is we have no evidence at all of extraterrestrial engagement with planet Earth.
Yeah.
And they won't say NHI engagement with planet Earth for some reason. I noticed our friend Chris Sharp has put that to Susan Gough at the Pentagon, and she won't allow him to use NHI in substitution. It means what they've done is they've very subtly confected a response that just giving them some wriggle room,
right,
for when public disclosure does happen. They can say, well, no, we didn't say ET. We didn't say it was,
yes.
We said it wasn't ET.
Yeah, synthetic.
I've never seen anything like this, guys. Look at this. How big that storm is, how big that one is, the big one coming from and that's the big one people are talking about, California.
This is 48 hours out. And in 7 to 10 days. When this storm is over, we'll be in a new ice age.
They said it's too dangerous.
¿Ven esa sombra ahí? Oh, no, eso es gigantesco.
Es una ballena.
¡Es largo! ¡Eso es un megalodón! Estamos muy arriba, pero igual da miedo.
This could be the creepiest evidence of time travel ever found. In 1968 in Boston, workers repairing old sewage tunnels uncovered a sealed brick chamber. Inside, they found something shocking, a passport, but the issue date was 2035. The passport belonged to a man named Thomas Hale, but according to official records, he had vanished without a trace in 1999. 10 years later, in 1978, another item appeared in the same tunnels, a photograph of Boston's skyline. The strange part? Several skyscrapers in the photo wouldn't be built until decades later. On the back of the photo was a handwritten message. Don't look for me. The loop has no exit. In 2004, city archivists uncovered a box of files hidden in City Hall's basement. Inside was Hale's journal, describing a government project called the Boston Gate, an attempt to stabilize a time rift beneath the city. But the most terrifying discovery came in 2020. Explorers sneaking through the abandoned tunnels found a skeleton in tattered clothes. In its pocket was that same passport, now burned along the edges. Tucked inside was a final note, written in shaky handwriting. I've seen the future. No one survives it.
Are aliens real?
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in what is it?
Area 51.
Area 51. There's no underground facility, unless there's this enormous conspiracy, and they hid it from the President of the United States.
What was the first question you wanted answered when you became president?
Where are the aliens?
Where are the aliens?
All right, let's go to a topic that's even beyond foreign policy, outside of the box here. The President Obama made some noise this week saying that there was that extraterrestrial life existed. Then he kind of reformed that and said he had not seen evidence personally of that, but there was this documentary called The Age of Disclosure, which interviewed government whistleblowers that alleged a massive government cover-up of UAPs or UFOs. So Congresswoman Kelly, do you believe there's a cover-up here, and would you vote as senator to disclose everything the government has on any kind of UAP program?
I would vote to do that as long as it doesn't interfere with national security. I mean, that comes first to me. But like if there's, like we have things that everyone doesn't know, or people have certain clearances. But if there is something that's going to be harmful to the United States or harmful to the world, yeah, I think we need to know about it.
Lieutenant Governor Stratton, do you believe some of these allegations that there might be a massive government cover-up here of what the government knows about UAPs?
Well, let me just tell you that I'm traveling the state every single day. And
you haven't heard that once.
And what people are talking to me about is why my campaign is all about giving the people what they want. They want higher wages. They want access to health care, which is why I support Medicare for all. And they want to get corporate PAC money out of politics, which is why I'm not accepting any corporate PAC money. That's what I hear people want, and that's what I'm going to fight for, the people. I'm sure they'll figure out the other issues.
The other issues, Congressman, have you been privy to any classified material?
I have. I'm a Star Trek fan, full disclosure, and so anyway, this is a more serious issue in terms of just more transparency needs to be provided, more disclosure to kind of get away from the conspiracy theories. It goes back to your question about trust in government. I do think that there's a lack of trust in government. There's just not disclosure or transparency, whether it's the Epstein files or whether it's this issue, or even whether it's files surrounding the assassinations of various prominent figures in our history. So I believe in more disclosure, more transparency. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, and we need to bring it wherever we can.
All right. We'll see if that issue takes control of the minds of voters right now. Perhaps not quite yet. But if you're a Star Trek fan, you're probably thinking about it a lot.
No puede ser. ¿Es real?
Now they're bringing us to a room with a bunch of babies in cylinders. The babies look like they're alive, like the way they would look in a mother's womb.
And how many babies?
Hundreds. They want us to know that these are our children. We each have more than 20 kids. It feels bad that I can't live with my babies. But I don't feel like they're being treated bad. They look like they're okay. They want to hybridize because they want to make sure that all of the future children are able to live on this planet.
What happens next?
It doesn't feel like a ship anymore. There's a room with screens in it. I'm being put in front of a screen. They're letting me know that it's a simulator. There's 3 symbols. Something comes on the screen. I see clouds. The ship knows where I want to go when I think it.
Why did they show that to you?
They say it's easier to pick up humans in a UFO if the human is flying it. If there was ever a cataclysm and I needed to save as many humans as possible, they would give me the coordinates of a ship. I will automatically know how to drive it. My DNA will be attached to the ship's memory. But there's many people like me all around the world. I'm not the only one.
Pretty dramatic episodes and incidents on infrared. Let's walk through some of them. You've got one that's called the Mothership Fleet. Tell us about that video, October 2017, what the circumstances were, where you were, and what you saw.
Certainly. Thanks, George, for asking about that sighting. That's probably the best recording I've shot to date. And this took place at Long Beach, in Long Beach, California. I had just purchased a new home there, and I was in my backyard just doing yard work actually one day when I looked up and saw this tremendous blob of light in the sky, this huge white elongated light. And this looked a little different than most of the normal objects I see, which are typically orbs or circular objects. This was kind of like an elongated tube. Now, when I saw this object, I immediately grabbed my camera, which is an infrared recording camera. I use a Canon SX60, which has been modified to record in full spectrum, to see these other ranges of light that we can't see with our eyes. So once I put the camera on this big glowing light in the sky, all these smaller orbs were released from the object, which was just fascinating. And I'll add the first 3 objects that came out of this portal light were in a triangular formation, which is very rare and also a commonality in these sightings for me.
Those triangle then formed like sort of a vertical line. It changed shapes too. So what was that display about? What was going on there? They were just trying to wow you?
I think it's just, I'm someone who avidly records these anomalies. I share them with the public, and I believe the more that you record them, the better the performances get. So in this case, I had been recording for about 8 or 9 years before I had this recording. And I just believe it wanted to share that moment with me on film, to share with the world. And then the more important point is this triangular formation of objects that came out in the beginning. I've had 3 other sightings that were also triangular formations, and that's a way for us to communicate with each other, to know that we are interacting, and it's kind of a basic form of visual display that we communicate with.
You had a second one that was another one that's featured on your site, on your website link from March of 2017, these 5 green lights. That video has been shared all over the world. What the heck was that thing?
Thanks, George. Yeah, that was a really profound sighting, and it was actually a close range sighting. It was about 50 feet off the ground at my office in Newport Beach, and I saw this tremendously large object hovering right in my backyard of 5 green spears with a black tower on top of these spears. This tower was about 20 feet tall, and it was the strangest object I've ever seen in my life at close range. Now, I had the opportunity to film this very close, but when I put the camera on it and I hit record, my HD card was full. And so I panicked and I started erasing all the files from my camera, trying to capture this anomaly at close range. By the time I'd erased these files, it had traversed across the yard into the upper atmosphere, and that's when I finally got the lens on it. But as you can see, it performs all types of unusual maneuvers, it had spotlights, and it's something I saw at close range, so I can verify that it was truly an anomaly.
Mikey, what was your side?
That's plausible to me. I mean, if there are aliens here, why are they here? What are they doing, right? And when you look at the behavior of the objects that we're seeing, it's consistent with the possibility that maybe somebody has an interest in something here they want to protect. And if we were to have a nuclear war, it might compromise that interest. So maybe they have a stake in some resource here or some capability or genetics or just whatever. Maybe it's an experiment and petri dish somebody started a long time ago. They want their experiment to run to its conclusion. I mean,
that's an interesting perspective.
There's so many possibilities when you start going down that path. I think probes that are, artificial intelligence probes that have the capability perhaps to manufacture or print robots or beings or maybe even genetically create something when it arrives at a destination is conceivable, right? They could travel through space for hundreds of years or thousands of years, arrive at a destination, consuming very little energy the whole way. All of a sudden, boom, and they create on board some beings that can operate things and perform tasks that are short-lived for that purpose, monitor, interact, collect, report. There's all kinds of possibilities that are within the bounds of science.
Infamous videos that we showed in one of our hearings was actually a video that was dead dropped to Eric Burleson, who's a member of Congress, from within the Department of War, and it shows a UAP, an unidentified air phenomena, deflecting a Hellfire missile. This was taken off of ISR footage off the coast of, I believe it was Yemen. So long story short, there have been briefings that we've received as Congress that leads us to believe that yes, there is definitely an advanced technology out there that's not created by mankind. And yes, of course, we've seen other evidence where it could potentially be UAPs, and then we later find out that there's drones. But there is a certain amount of evidence that we simply can't explain. Some of the physics that are defied in how these vehicles operate are very interesting to note. And we are not the only government that's, looked into this extensively. But I really do look at this from a lens of national security. And as you know, as we continue to evolve specifically on the front of AI and drone technology, we have to ensure that are these things, whatever they may be, are they potential adversarial weapons, advanced weapons, or not? And I think the whole aspect that the federal government can deny access to members of Congress, of which has happened not just to myself, but to other members of Congress as well, is not just alarming, but it's also something that cannot truly exist in a free and fair society. Government should not operate in secrecy. And so I look forward to the American people being able to determine their own conclusion after they've seen some of the evidence that we have seen. But most recently, Representative Gates actually came forward. He was on that initial CODAL with me and Representative Tim Burchett, where we were denied access. And he will tell you that if you've seen some of the stuff that we've seen, you will too become a believer.
a lot of people in the US like to talk about this Men in Black phenomenon, which are, you could say they're the first responders when it comes to sort of alien experiences. Did they seem like they were human and they were coming from intelligence agencies or army affiliated, or did they almost seem paranormal or alien themselves?
To me, they looked normal. I mean, the only thing that caught my attention, because I'm a short guy, I'm not tall, you know, not big or muscular, was that they were very tall, okay? They were about the height of someone like James or other tall, strong people. Very military looking, you know? Big, muscular, ripped. I'd look up at them and like, okay, yes, sir. They were strong, okay? But if someone says, oh, they had weird eyes or something, that's a lie. A lie. They were normal people, okay? Normal human beings, just strong and very well dressed. Only one of them spoke. The other stood next to him, just watching, wearing sunglasses, silent. He didn't say a word. He finished speaking, they turned around and left, got into the car and drove away. That was when I went to look at the license plate and there wasn't one. That's when all of this happened.
What's so remarkable to me is that they know all these personal details about you, your family, your address, hours after you see this event. And we're talking about 1996. So this is really before the internet, before large databases in the US, let alone a small town in Brazil. So have you speculated about that and thought about how did he get that information?
Let's correct this story. It wasn't hours later. It was minutes later.
It was minutes?
10, 15 minutes. 10, 15, 20 minutes at most.
So how does he know who you are?
This question you're asking me is the same question I've been asking myself for 30 years. That same question I've asked myself for 30 years. How? Because that was one of the things that terrified me the most. So much so that when I went back to São Paulo and gave this interview to Claudio Corvo, this ufologist, 9 months later, I deeply regretted it because my life turned into hell. At the time, in Brazil, all phones were landlines. Cell phones didn't really exist. They looked like war radios, you know? Can you read me? Over. That kind of thing. The technology was very basic, just starting out. So 99.99% of the population had landline phones. They had the rotary dials for you to dial the numbers to make a call. And I started to notice that every time I picked up the phone to talk, there was someone on the other end listening. Because when what Claudia released aired on Globo, when it leaked, you could tell. I even changed phone numbers and it didn't make a difference. That really started to irritate me. And my company, inspections started showing up. Audits, tax checks, things like that. You know when it feels like someone is looking for something wrong where there isn't anything? In other words, looking for the smallest excuse to shut you down. But those inspections lasted days. Normally they'd last hours, but these went on for days. And in front of my company, unmarked cars would show up. Cars without identification, fake plates, or no plates at all. They just sit there watching. When you walk toward them, they'd start the car and leave. They never said anything. And no, I was never threatened with death later. That's a lie. Nobody ever threatened me with death. But you could feel the pressure. Like they were saying, if you keep talking, things are going to get ugly. Something serious is going to happen to you.
There are a lot of hypotheses about what believers speculate about alien sightings and what they may be. The top 5, I'll just rattle through these and get your view afterwards. One is extraterrestrial hypothesis. It states that UFOs are physical spacecraft or probes piloted by intelligent beings from other planets. The second one is interdimensional hypothesis. This theory suggests that UFOs are not from other planets, but from other dimensions or parallel universes that coexist alongside our own. Then there's crypto-terrestrial hypothesis, suggests that an advanced non-human civilization might already be living right here on Earth in secret, perhaps deep underwater, underground, or even disguised amongst us. Time traveler hypothesis. Some researchers purpose that aliens are actually humans from a distant future. Their humanoid appearance is cited as evidence of future evolutionary changes in our own species. And then there's the Earth Zoo hypothesis. In this scenario, Earth is treated like a nature preserve or a zoo where we are observed from a distance to allow our society to evolve naturally. So they're the top 5 hypotheses to try and explain alien sightings and so on.
This apparatus does not move the man. It displaces the space around him. There are no moving parts, no combustion.
From here, it looks like a triangle.
It is a triangle with a red light in the middle.
Wow, that's a weird crap.
It is. That's unusual.
That is weird.
Now this is where you need to zoom in.
I don't understand how that's not like the lead story in the news sometimes.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And meanwhile, they're, arguing over, everything.
Yeah.
Everything else. Everything, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
Can you believe what's going on with Turning Point USA? They found aliens.
I know.
They found alien bodies. Like if you ever wanted alien bodies, show me a body. That's an alien body.
Yeah.
At the very least, it's not us. So maybe it's from here and went extinct, or maybe it's in the ocean.
Or the congressional testimony of like high level whistleblowers being like, we have these whatever, this ship, whatever you want to call it, that and then it's like in a congressional testimony, everyone's like, that's cool.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Yeah, everybody's like TikToking.
But it was funny
that
that
Nicki Minaj was on stage at the TPUSA.
It's crazy. It's really crazy to me.
Yeah.
That's not captivating people more.
Well, I think, people are in a trance. There's a giant percentage of our population that's in a trance. That should be the main news, other than the wars. That should be the main news today.
There it is again.
Oh, it's coming back.
Yeah, it's coming back. Okay, look right there. Above the fucking tree, it's blinking in green. It's stopping, and then it'll go hella fast in one direction, stop, and then it'll come right back. Yeah, do you see it? Yeah.
Now watch, it'll move.
It's not a plane. It's gonna move.
There it goes, it's moving.
What the fuck is that?
There, and it turned around.
What? Call Stefan, Mom. He'll trip out. You know he loves UFOs. Like, what is that?
I don't have his number.
I gave it to you yesterday. Dang, now it's behind their house.
Do you have any binoculars?
I actually do.
We are going to be working very closely with the White House. I have meetings set up next week with not just the FBI, but the Department of War to push for a very specific list of documents. I believe it's over 20 documents specifically that we know that they are housing, that they have previously denied us access to as members of Congress, which should alarm every American, but will be similar to some of the footage that you've seen us release from my task force, as well as the footage that you have up on your screen right now. I can slightly allude to it right now, but we still are waiting on the official declass. But once we receive it, I will be actually sharing with the American people some stuff that was briefed to us directly by the FBI and be able to share more information on that. And so based on the tech, if you look at how these things are moving, some people will say, well, this could potentially be drones or advanced technologies from other adversarial governments, which is exactly why we should be able to access this information and to debunk that if possible. But there are certain things that we can't explain, and I was not the only member of Congress that saw that. Many members on my task force actually came into the briefing, as well as other individuals that are currently looking into this. And so we will be revealing that information. We will be ensuring that the declassification order by the president is followed through on. And again, I'm not telling people what to believe, but yeah, it's definitely hard to explain.
Fuck. Oh, fuck.
Wait a minute, what the
Holy shit. Fuck. Oh, my. Oh, my Oh. Oh, fuck.
Wait, why? How? What?
It just spun out of control. It didn't get shot. You didn't hurt it.
There is reportedly an object that is not in this country that is so large it cannot be moved. That they've built an entire building around it. And I think either Greer or another individual has actually mentioned this site, but I'm not going to mention it because it is a classified location. But there is there's reported a really large object, and that's one of the locations that I'm requesting to get to. It's going to involve a lot to make that happen, but that may be the final destination.
What exactly are you looking for in the release of these files that President Trump has promised?
Some certainty with what we're dealing with. Ultimately, I think some of this information is going to have to remain classified. The means or location of detecting some of these objects may have to remain classified. But I think having some certainty to whether there is a there, are these something from another world? Are they something we don't have the right words for? Is this truly a mystery with what the government knows? The American people have to be on the same page if we're going to properly participate in this democracy, understanding the state of the world and reality.
There it is.
There it is. Or
two
of them. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, look, they kind of split three, almost.
Three. Holy shit.
Prometheus runs so much deeper than anyone can possibly imagine. So the engineers come from the sky. They seed life on Earth and then return. And then at some point, they decide that humanity needs to be erased. Now, before I continue, I highly recommend you to read the Book of Enoch and come right back to this video. You just finished the Book of Enoch. Good. Proud of you. So in the book, as you all should have just read, a group called the Watchers descend to Earth. And in Mesopotamia myth, they're linked to what they called the Anunnaki. What's up, Joe Rogan? Sky gods who interact with humanity. The Watchers do three things. They descend, they give forbidden knowledge, and they corrupt creation. They teach humans metallurgy, warfare, cosmetics, magic, knowledge before humanity is spiritually ready. Sound familiar? In Prometheus, the engineers give us DNA. They give us the spark of life. But they also create this black liquid that this dude's about to drink. It's a substance that mutates, destroys, and creates monsters. Creation and corruption come from the same source. In Enoch, the Watchers create the Nephilim, hybrid giants born from heaven and earth. These beings destabilize the world, and judgment follows. And in Prometheus, human contact with the engineered DNA creates the Deacon, a hybrid proto-xenomorph lineage. Again, heaven and humanity equals destabilized creation. The key idea, my fellow viewers, is this. They're not gods. They're powerful beings inside the whole of creation, just like the Watchers in the Book of Enoch. They descend, they interfere, and they leave chaos behind. This, Prometheus, is one of the oldest stories in the book. Angels who were never supposed to come down and start something new. What is your favorite line in Prometheus? Drop your comments down below.
In 1966, Westall high students and teachers insist they saw UFOs triggering a massive government cover-up.
They were threatening him.
Oh, absolutely. I was threatened.
Then a Westall teacher, Andrew Greenwood, speaks publicly for the first time to Spotlight.
Mr. Greenwood, there's a flying saucer!
On the Oval, he and 200 students saw 3 of them.
It was a grey, almost cylindrical or cigar-shaped object.
All these years later, the students draw what they witnessed. They claim one landed in a park, then took off.
I could feel a heat and hear this buzzing sound, and I could see purple lights all around it.
Now, close to that landing area is a popular UFO-themed children's playground, but at the time, within 40 minutes, this area was swarming with military officials who warned witnesses never to tell anyone what they'd seen. They menaced the teacher at home.
They told me that I was wrong, that I hadn't seen anything.
And if he spoke up,
clearly you were drunk on duty, and that will have to be reported to the Education Department, and of course you'll lose your job.
An official report into Westall just disappeared.
And that is what I find most interesting of all, that I was definitely being told to be quiet.
Whistleblowers from the highest levels of authorities, from the military, from the CIA, from the Pentagon, sightings all across the world, a gathering body of data, people who have said they have seen things that cannot be explained. Are we about to learn as humanity that we're not alone? Let's speak to the excellent journalist Christopher Sharp. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Alex. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, I love the fact that as soon as this came out, you messaged me going, it's happening. What do you think? I love the fact. Sorry, we're going to have the cheesy music, but, you know, it's Friday night. But let's talk about what you think is going to happen, because it seems to me that, you know, Obama suggested that, well, they don't even show those things to the American president. Trump then said, oh, he's spilling some classified information. Does Trump know? Is he going to tell us we're not alone?
It's very difficult to know when it comes to Trump. He's a very unpredictable person. I think people, especially within the British government, have learned that as of late. He doesn't really listen to many of his advisors. The only thing that he seems to listen to is his gut, and that makes him very, very unpredictable as the president. But I do know that discussions have taken place behind the scenes, and he has been briefed on this topic, and it has been told to me that he has sufficient evidence to show that there is a there in terms of potential non-human intelligence.
So let's go back over exactly that last sentence. He has sufficient evidence to now be able to basically make the world-changing protestation that there could well be, or is, other stuff we can't explain that is not earthly.
Craft retrieved press retrievals, from my understanding, have resulted in the exploitation of craft that are highly exotic, and there is a race to reverse engineer these craft. China has a program, Russia has a program, the United States have a program, and behind the scenes there is a race to exploit that technology.
Why do you think? Because there's a lot of things, those of us who follow this topic keenly, I feel like we have been building up to this, that we are being gently massaged into preparedness for such an announcement by a sort of increase in, first of all, the documentaries, then these testimonies in America. Then we're going to have a big documentary in the UK looking at UK observations of phenomena. We've got a very important book that's being published by Penguin from a top KC who himself has spent years gathering testimonies and evidential data on what's been recorded and seen in the United Kingdom. And so it does feel like everything's now coming to a head, that we have been sort of, the carpeters has been rolled out, allowing us to slowly walk towards this moment.
Yes, these are very, very serious people. Jonathan Kaplan, the KC, who's written the book, which is going to be published in the summer. He's one of the greatest legal minds in the world, not just the country, and he is convinced of this. And the book, I think, will create ripples. And also people within the administration, Marco Rubio, John Radcliffe, have sufficient knowledge of this to believe that there is something to this. In 2023, John Radcliffe, the now CIA director, who was former director of national intelligence at the time, told Pete Hegseth, when he was a presenter on Fox and Friends, that there are objects that he has seen which seem to defy the laws of physics, and that basically it means that the United States is not the dominant power on Earth. And I've had conversations as well. I had a conversation last night with someone who was deputy director of the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. He told me that they have seen unidentified anomalous phenomena, which is what they're called, UFOs, in space. And also they have seen objects which have been like hovering and then instantaneously accelerated, including triangular craft that he's seen as well. And it's not theirs. He's asked various agencies, he's spoken to the right people. It's not Russian, it's not Chinese.
Had people who I know are in the know, and I've mentioned this before, and one of them told me the truth is indigestible. It's not something that we could, that we would be able to fully grasp or entertain, and that it's like, it would be like telling somebody something that they can't do anything about, and they don't know what the repercussions of that would be. It's so great. It's so world-changing and transformational, and maybe not in a good way, so.
I mean, what could be so jarring? What could be so disruptive? I mean, bless you. Like the idea that we're being visited by another advanced intelligence that's more advanced than us? I mean, do you think, or is it something else?
I think it's much deeper.
You remember the guy who proved to ABC News that he could summon UFOs?
All right, guys, just listen up here. This guy says the Old Testament, written in Hebrew, taught him how to summon UFOs. All right, he says he can also do this on command, and he adds he's been doing it for 25 years, keeping all of it secret until now.
These beings are here. They're here. They're just sitting right up there.
We met up with Prophet Yahweh, seer of Yahweh, at Doolittle Park off Lake Mead. We picked the day, we picked the time, and we picked the locations. When the prophet started praying for a sighting, I wasn't exactly convinced.
I pray, oh Yahweh, that you send a sighting so that they know that I am not mentally ill. I am not a false prophet, like those who seek to kill me say I am.
I see something straight up.
Oh, brother, look at it. There it is.
You can barely see it, a white speck. Then another sighting.
There it is. I got it.
Photojournalist Jonathan Hawkins locks in on it. Let's take a closer look here. It's an orange sphere that appeared out of nowhere. I call the boss with an unexpected change in my story. I can see it clear as day. In fact, it's bright. I can believe it. It's moving pretty fast.
It's gone to Nellis Air Force Base. It wants to be seen.
We called Nellis to see what these things might be. Guess what? They didn't call us back. But this thing started coming back toward us. It's coming toward us now, I think.
What?
See, it's coming up toward us.
Whoa, man! Oh, hallelujah!
Then, a few seconds later, it disappeared.
It's going back up in space.
Prophet Yahweh isn't concerned. He says it'll be back. And I'm still not quite sure what those things were. Now, if I didn't see this for myself, I probably would have just laughed this whole thing off. Prophet Yahweh says, though, this is just the beginning.
So a former NASA engineer that worked with Lockheed Martin and also contracted with DARPA is coming forward as a whistleblower and talking about how there is trillions of extraterrestrial artifacts, material, and devices scattered all over the world that are not man-made. You've got to listen to this podcast. Let's check it out together. This is the Ecosystem Futures podcast. Give this a listen.
So one of the things that ended up is I ended up getting pulled into classified programs. And in there, one of the things I wanted to look at was to see if the U.S. government actually was using these technologies. And it turned out that my conclusion was the U.S. government was not. So from there, I ended up working in a number of different companies. I had a project with DARPA for a while. And what we were trying to do is some of the things we observed that you could have longitudinal forces inside of composite conductors. Our application that we pitched to the NSF that we worked with Hannah was that we could probably use these forces for propulsion. And in our case, we're not using a large capacitor disk. We are using very small nanoparticles, and then we have the charges accelerate inside the particles and then tunnel to the next particle. And then we're under phase 2 right now. Now, some of these other materials that we looked at, some of the other strange properties that they have is real similar to what Hal's doing. It's you could have some of these materials that were built similarly, and you had them set up, instead of being a long, thin antenna, you could put them into a cylinder. So all of a sudden now, for the ends of the antenna, now you have a significant amount of area. And in electromagnetics, what they do is they have something called the gauges. And in electromagnetics, what they say is there's no radiation coming out of the ends of an antenna. So in our case, we're pretty sure, because some of the experiments that we had done and some of the places I'd been, I'd actually seen what we call electroscalar radiation, which is similar to what Hal's working on. Haller is working on a type of radiation that has no fields. But in our case, we're pretty sure that what comes out of the ends of an antenna, instead of being absolutely nothing or just being potentials, if you were to have an antenna of the right length, you could actually see an electric field associated with these potentials. So at that point, instead of using an electromagnetic squid to detect these potentials, now you could probably follow this one potential using an electric field meter. And that came out of work that some of the stuff that we observed when I was working with these NGOs is near some of these craft, electronics would always shut down. And some of the measurements we had done, it indicated there was an electric field associated with these types of radiation. And that's where the work has basically gone to today. We've talked to the Air Force, and we think we could probably replicate these type of effects. And some of the things that comes out of this is that we really do have some kind of radiation coming out of the ends of an antenna, which would be a longitudinal radiation. And having an electric field and an oscillating scalar potential also implies there might be another field out there that we can't measure right now. And one of the things that the Air Force has wanted us to do was to see if we could try to measure this other field. And this other field is kind of similar to what Chance is observing with some of his effects. We assume that this field will do things like put a pressure on something, or like take some other device that's measuring, say, a diffraction pattern and be able to move it a little bit. So a lot of our research is really confirming what everybody else seems to be working on here. And for the NSF, our real objective is to be able to take these new metamaterials and try to generate an external force. And internally right now, when we are able to apply a DC current to these materials and we're observing these accelerated charges in these nanocomponents, we can see pretty large forces inside these materials. We're using relatively low currents. And a lot of these materials have somewhat of a high impedance, so they do take high voltages. So this is really where a lot of our work's been going on. Oh, and then some of the things with Larry, some of the places I've been, there are organizations, these NGOs, did get a lot of that data that you were looking for. But when I looked at the data, I didn't see anything like a nitrogen. So the ones that I worked with were trying to figure out how these rather large craft, which people call triangles, would be able to disappear on a dime. So when we were set up looking at these triangles, when they decloaked and they recloaked, we didn't see anything like that. What we really saw was it appeared to be that these triangles were taking whatever was, an example would be whatever was behind them and actually projecting it in front of them, which might be equivalent to taking the light rays and bending it around the actual triangle. And so our conclusion, they were doing something along those lines. They were probably doing it with a lot less energy. So some of the conditions we observed them on was a lot of times where they were observing behind them would be a little different than what we would be observing. So what they would do is we would assume would be projecting what's behind them in front of them, but it really wouldn't be quite what we would be seeing. And then we had an idea that we could probably track these triangles because their cloak or whatever they're using to bend the light around them was never going to be exactly the same. So some of that work that I was doing with NGOs was really exciting. But one of the other things that comes out of this is these individuals or whoever this group is that has this advanced technology probably does not want us to reverse engineer what they're working on. So they're probably using their methods or their technologies to try to keep us from doing things like reverse engineering or exploring how they work, just because of the fact that gives them an advantage over us. So a lot of my work really comes out of the work I do with NGOs, and I think we are on the cusp of actually developing new technologies, because I think we're all here on this group, we're all working all kind of in the same direction, where I think within 5 or 10 years, a couple of us, or hopefully us, will have new technologies out here that'll change the world. And I think propulsion is one of them. I think we're really on the cusp of actually being able to develop all this propulsion. But one thing I did notice was looking at some of these materials is they were smart materials. Like one of the things is when these materials, you'd be looking at them and you try and reverse engineer them, that they would turn to dust. And they would do it within a minute or two. And then so you could take the dust and then send it off and get the isotopic analysis done on them. And they were extraterrestrial. But these materials, we're looking at something that's hundreds of years ahead of us. When you look under a microscope, an electron microscope, you're looking at something that's composed of very small particles that seem to be communicating with one another. And I think that's one of the reasons why extraterrestrial materials are not really available to most people, is because most of them are set to disintegrate if they get in the wrong hands. The isotopic analysis of the dust that's left behind tells you it's extraterrestrial, at least where it was manufactured. But so we're looking at materials that can reconfigure themselves. They are composed of small subunits. So the type of things I looked at were something as small as a sliver of metal that would reconfigure itself depending on where it was. It would cloak itself and it would try to blend into the environment. So the ones that this one NGO used to get a hold of were the ones that were technically broken. I guess the ones that didn't really function very well. So then you could collect them every once in a while and then try to analyze them. You could do things like split them apart, and they would attempt to find each other or reconfigure. Some of the experiments they did was we took one of those and we put it on a very hot surface of about 3,000 degrees. And what it would do is it cooled the surface around itself. And then when we took the device off and then weighed it again, we would find that the mass would be reduced by a certain amount. So these are really curious types of materials. So that's how we could kind of tell they were extraterrestrial, because these things weren't like decades ahead of us. They were probably hundreds of years ahead of us.
Yeah, we found that they were layered alloys at the micron levels, and none of our technologists, even in the big aerospace corporations, could make these layers bond together. So just by their physical construction, we could tell it was way beyond anything that had been manufactured in our ordinary technology here on Earth.
Yeah, that's what I saw too. You were looking at the outside of a craft or materials that came from a crashed spacecraft or something?
Yes.
Yeah, so we were looking at very little things. They seemed to deposit all over the world. We weren't estimating there's probably trillions of these things that are deposited, and they have all sorts of functions. which really kind of implies that maybe this group is actually manipulating our species. But you can still acquire those. You know where to look for them. We know how to find them.
Well, if you find a hatful, why don't you send them our way and we'll take a look at them?
Yeah, that's it. So the group I used to work with, I don't talk with anymore because they got upset at me for talking. So, but I have an idea where someone could get them.
So that was Richard Van Durek on the Ecosystemic Futures podcast. Go and listen to the full thing on Spotify. Absolutely fascinating. Let me know down in the comments below what you think. Disclosure is happening, and it's happening now.
The reason that the government wanted to collect me was that after they had raided my property in 2012 in the jungle, shot my dog, abused me, destroyed $500,000 worth of my property over a bogus charge, I was pissed off. And so I donated to many secretaries within the government laptop computers, really nice ones that were preloaded with viral spyware. Within a week, the entire government computer system was under my control. I was watching, monitoring, listening. I was looking for information that they had set me up for that raid. I didn't find that. I did find out that the Minister of National Defense was the largest drug trafficker in all of Central America, and the Minister of Immigration, the largest human trafficker.
They are not aliens. They're ancient. What you call extraterrestrial, there are beings that fell, not from stars, but from grace, from the days when angels left their post and mingled with flesh. What they birthed wasn't human. It wasn't holy. And when the flood erased their bodies, their spirits stayed. They didn't come from galaxies, not from Mars, but from a realm between heaven and hell. They don't come in peace. They come in disguise. Shapeshifters, deceivers, pretending to be advanced when they're really ancient prisoners trying to regain power. They don't seek contact. They seek agreement. And every fascination with their image is a doorway to theirs. Because demons don't need to barge in if you call them enlightened. They'll come through curiosity, through sightings, through obsession masked as science. The enemy doesn't need you afraid. He needs you intrigued. These are not higher beings. They are fallen ones, masked in light, backed by deception, and rooted in rebellion. Stop calling it aliens. Call it what it is. Unclean spirits in modern disguise.
Wow, så kul.
Så jag var kört in svingen.
Så.
Oj. Det där är så sikkert ut. Jag bara så steg mitt liv.
Ser du, Katarina?
Det där är ju. Så jag kört i svingen, pappa.
Ja, jag ska göra det. Jag har inte tid till det.
Jag gör det där.
There's 4 hovering things in the sky. It seems like they're growing and morphing in size. There's some kind of like tracker on this, like camera tracker. I'm assuming this is military. And now these orbs in the sky aren't moving, but they're emitting some kind of plasma just dripping down out of the... It makes me wonder if this was not visible to the naked eye as well.
Right. I was thinking the same thing. Is this thermal?
Yeah.
Most likely.
But it looks like there's some kind of plasma just oozing out of these orbs. Watch what happens here.
That's crazy. That shell actually bends and hits both objects, though.
Yeah. So, like, you're definitely right. There's a missile that shoots. Let's just call it a missile because I don't know what it is, but it looks like a missile or something was shot at these things, and you see it make contact with both orbs, and the one, like you're right, it U'd up just a little bit to hit the other one, and then after it explodes these orbs, they morph back into an orb again, oozing their plasma. it makes you wonder, first of all, like this orb that we're looking at here, is it physical? Whatever they shot at it didn't explode. So did it actually make contact with anything? So like you think a missile, if it makes contact with something, it's going to explode. So maybe that was them trying to figure out if these are actually physical or what. There's a lot of questions about this, right? Mm-hmm. We also see there's conflict amongst the idea of UFO, UAP entities and military governments. It's this mixed bag where there's this constant mind game playing. It's real, it's not real. It goes back and forth, and you as the receiver of all this information never truly understand what the baseline is, what the foundation is. Because you have like these legends of, our government working with these entities. You hear people talk about, I've seen a human being working alongside the entity in cooperation. And then you see and hear stories of there being great conflict.
What happened to Jacques Cousteau in Lake Tahoe?
We've heard these stories about Jacques Cousteau. Obviously, you know who he is. Mm-hmm. They say that Jacques Cousteau went to Lake Tahoe and took his submarine and dove there. Mm-hmm. And he came back up and said the world isn't ready for what is down there.
Go back into the 70s, maybe 80s, early 80s. Jacques Cousteau was in California, had his boat out there. They were looking for a cook. And they're like, oh, you sound perfect. Come on out. But yeah, he has been there. And I don't know that I heard the phrase, the world isn't ready for it yet. He wasn't ready to continue is what I heard. Because he wasn't going to go back there. He was not ready to go do more.
Right. And so then I think somebody, I can't remember what publication, reached out to his foundation now that he's gone. And they said, no, he's never been there. We have no history of that. And so I'm like, who is gatekeeping that information and why?
He says, at least in the ocean, you've got enough room for him to get away. Most animals don't want to be caught. Right. But now, why would he even make that commentary unless he had been in a place that had less area for something to get away? You get it cornered, and what does any animal do? Full-blown predator. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's going to battle for its life.
It's a big surprise. Nobody thought the ocean was this deep. So all of a sudden we've got scientists saying, why is that?
We have mapped the surface of Mars better than we have mapped our own ocean floors. That is a fact that keeps scientists awake at night. But recently, a sensor dropped into the deepest crack in the Earth's crust sent back a signal that defies everything we know about biology and physics.
There's a whole lot of questions you get when you find this one spectacular reading.
It was not a glitch. It was not a rock falling. It was something massive, and it was moving fast. What lives in the crushing dark of the Mariana Trench should not exist, yet the data says otherwise. Stick around because what we found down there changes the history of our planet. The shadow in the abyss. Imagine standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon, but it is underwater and it is 5 times deeper. That is where we are going. A few months ago, an autonomous deep-sea lander was drifting through the Hadal Zone. This is the deepest layer of the ocean, a place named after the underworld for a reason. The sensor was there to listen for earthquakes, to monitor the shifting of tectonic plates. But here is the catch. It picked up something else entirely. At a depth of nearly 7 miles or 11 kilometers, the water pressure is 8 tons per square inch. To put that in perspective, imagine an elephant standing on your thumb. That is the weight pressing down on every single inch of anything that goes down there. Nothing moves fast in the Hadal Zone. The energy required to move through water that dense is immense. Most life forms down there are slow, conserving energy, drifting like ghosts. But the sensor data showed a disturbance. It was a massive displacement of water. It happened in seconds. Something large cut through the darkness at a speed that makes our best nuclear submarines look like toys. Scientists looked at the spectrographs and the sonar ripples. They thought it was a sensor error. They ran the diagnostics. The machine was working perfectly. So here's the deal. If the machine was fine, then the reading was real. A solid object roughly 50 feet long had just swept past the sensor in the deepest place on Earth. And that is putting it lightly. The implications of this are terrifying because we do not have a single biological model for a creature of that size that can hunt at that depth. We are talking about an environment where the temperature is just above freezing. It is pitch black, there is zero sunlight. The food chain is almost non-existent, relying on marine snow, which is basically dead stuff falling from miles above. Yet something down there has enough energy to move with aggression. The crazy part is that this is not the first time we have seen anomalies like this, but usually we dismiss them. We say it was a shifting rock or a mudslide, but rocks do not change direction.
Did you go through the secret files, the UFO documents? Because if I was president, that'd be the first thing I did.
You know, it's funny. My daughters asked the very same question.
They did?
Yeah.
UFOs. You've been the president. You've seen all the info. Are they real?
The truth is that we've never proved one, but there are things flying around up there that we haven't fully identified yet.
Would you be allowed to tell your daughters what was in those files?
No.
You would not?
No.
Now that you're out of office, you can do anything you want, right?
True, yeah. But I'm not telling you.
You're not telling... You're not telling me what? Are you not telling me that you looked at them?
I'm not telling you nothing.
If I was the president, and it's unlikely that that is ever going to happen.
You never know.
My hand would just, it'd still be hot from touching the Bible, and I would immediately race to wherever they have the files about Area 51 and the UFOs, and I'd go through everything to find out what happened.
Right.
Did you do that?
That's why you will not be president. Because that's the first thing that you would do.
If you become president, are you really going to tell the truth about UFOs?
I have said I want to open the files as much as we can. But there are enough stories out there that I don't think everybody is just sitting, in their kitchen making them up.
Recently, when UFOs came up on Jimmy Kimmel, she corrected his terminology.
And there's a new name. It's unexplained aerial phenomenon.
All this talk about dem aliens with the what are they, UAFs or whatever they call them, all the footage and everyone talking about it. It's like, but I was wondering if you have a theory about that.
Well, when it comes to aliens, there's some things I just can't tell you on air.
What's your viewpoint on what these objects that seem to defy all laws of physics are?
Well, first of all, that's a legitimate question now. The short answer, but not the most meaningful one, is I don't know about this. But when I was president and I had a chief of staff, John Podesta, who loved science fiction, we made every attempt to find out everything about Roswell. And we also sent people to Area 51 to make sure there were no aliens in a deep... There's no aliens, as I know.
So did you look? Did you see? Did you explore?
I can't reveal anything.
Oh, really? Because President Clinton said he did go right in, and he did check, and there was nothing.
Well, that's what we're instructed to say.
Are there really great secrets that you know that you can't share with people?
Yeah.
Yeah, there are. And you never write about them.
No.
Maybe at a time in your life that you're like, I'm 90, I'm going to do it.
No.
No, nothing. What if you were to get like a little loopy, you get old and
start drinking again?
Start drinking again.
Yes, right there.
So you have interviewed a lot of presidents before, and I wanted to ask you if any of them told you if aliens were real.
Oh, I asked Obama if aliens were real.
UFOs? Any UFOs? Did you ask about that?
Certainly asked about it.
And?
Can't tell you. Sorry.
Okay. All right, I'll take that as a yes.
He said he wouldn't answer the question. I said, well, that's a yes.
Because if there were none, you'd say there was none, right? You just played your hand. I thought you were a poker player. You just 100% showed your river card.
Feel free to think that.
I do.
I was just thinking about that the other day. Wasn't it just like a year ago that we got the report and then the people members like the Secretary of the Navy or something went on 60 Minutes and said, yeah, it's real. Mm-hmm. And we're all just going on with our lives.
I know, it's crazy.
How are we just going on with our lives when we know that there are real UFOs out there. I think they're softening up the beach. They're just like, okay, they handled the video and the proof pretty well. Now let's let them know that there are aliens, because they're afraid we're going to freak out.